system for live streaming. I'm just gonna have to suffer. So that's my system for live streaming.
Been live streaming this whole time.
Most of the day.
And then.
Just like
I kept on wanting to go sit in that desk too.
Right. So what?
I kept on wanting to sit in that desk. Not that I really wanted to, but like, the little voice inside my head told me to.
I watched that little voice. You forgive me? All right. Anybody remember what was going on over the weekend?
I remember that we learned how his dad's ship sank.
Yes. Yeah, he lost an anchor to windward and got blown into a reef. Apparently, oh yeah, and then his dad.
Has that war just ended?
Yeah, but things just kept getting worse anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a fight in, and Captain John Derby told everybody to go to the tavern, and then Granny and Mother were talking about Father going to the tavern. Probably. A voice in the night. It was an early winter. A nor'easter howled in from the Atlantic, bringing rain that changed his sleet and then back to snow. Nat hugged his thin coat about him and scurried back from an errand. The sleet lashed his face and brought tears to his eyes so that he could not see where he was going. He ran into a man, stumbled, and lost his balance. He went down in the mud and slush. "Excuse me," he said. He looked up and recognized the roly-poly man. He gasped, "Excuse me, sir." It was the new pastor of East Church, Dr. Bentley. Everyone said Dr. Bentley was about the brightest man who had ever come to Salem. They said he knew 20 languages. Dr. Bentley helped Nat to his feet, took out a handkerchief, and wiped at the mud on Nat's clothes. No, excuse me, you're the one who tumbled." He must have noticed how thin Nat's coat was. He said, "This cold spell took a man by surprise, didn't it? No time to get his winter coat out of the garret." Nat's answer was always ready. "I don't need a coat. I don't get cold. Only sissies need winter coats." Then he saw the heavy coat that bundled Dr. Bentley. I mean, well, when you're young, you know. Of course, when a man gets old, I guess he needs a heavy coat. I mean, Dr. Bentley chuckled. "That's right. Old fellows of 25, like me, have to watch their health." He walked along toward the cooperage with Nat. "You're Nathaniel Bowditch, aren't you? I've heard Master Watson talk about you. You're not in school today?" I've quit school to help my father." Dr. Bentley stared at it. "What? But that's, he stopped. After a while, he said, "I'll leave you here, Nat. Goodbye." When Nat got home that evening, Liz was big-eyed. When she had a chance, she whispered, "Dr. Bentley came to see Mother. He told her you ought to be getting ready for Harvard right now. Isn't that wonderful? When a man as bright as Dr. Bentley says you're bright, too." What did Mother say? She thanked him, and she smiled and smiled. After he had gone, she didn't smile, though. She walked back and forth, and Granny said, "Stop stewing about that boy and take care of yourself." Something colder than a nor'easter settled in Nat's chest. "Granny's worried about Mother." Lizzie nodded slowly. "I know. But Mother always laughs and says, 'I'm all right.' She says, 'I'll live to see Nat the Harvard man.'" Not quite 3 months later, just before Christmas, Mother died. The night after the funeral, Father sat at the table with his head in his hands. "I'll do better, Mother," he said. "I swear I will." Granny's eyes were sad. "I hope so, son, but you better claw up that lee shore." Mary put her arm around Granny. "Why don't you go to bed, dear?" Granny sighed. I think I will. It seems like I've lost my tuck. Not quite 2 years later, when Nat was 12, Granny died. Again, Father sat by the table with his head in his hands. Again, he said, I'll do better, Mary. I swear I will. I swear I will. Mary didn't answer. She just looked at Father. Her eyes were as sad as Granny's used to be. Nat knew what she was thinking. You've lost your last anchor to windward. 2 months later, something wakened Nat in the night. He raised up on one scrawny elbow and stared into the dark. What was it? He listened. There were only the sounds he had known all these years in Salem. The creaking of the old wooden house buffeted by the Atlantic wind. No other sounds. But something had wakened him. He shivered and started to huddle under the blanket again. Then he heard his father's voice. Father must be talking to Mary. Since Mary and Granny were gone, since Mother and Granny were gone, they all turned to Mary. At first, Father's voice was only a rumble. Then Nat heard the scrape of a chair and the thud of a log being pitched on the fire. For a moment, Father's voice was louder. I think it's the thing for Nat. He's not much good in the cooperage. He's better with his head than with his hands. He won't be bringing in any money, but there will be one less mouth to feed. Master Watson always said he was right. I talked to Michael Walsh. He said, the chair scraped again. Father's voice died to a rumble. Nat could no longer hear what he was saying, but he had heard enough to know what they were talking about. Michael Walsh was a teacher. Nat sat up again. The covers fell away, but he did not notice the cold. He was going back to school. He must be going away somewhere to school. Father had said one less mouth to feed. Surprised, Nat found tears in his face and wiped them with the back of his hand. That's funny, he said. I don't cry. Boys don't blubber. Silly to cry when he was happy enough to burst. He was going back to school. Where? He didn't know, but somewhere. After all, and after he had learned all he could in that school, he'd go to Harvard. How? He didn't know. He just knew that he would. Latin. He'd have to learn Latin to go to Harvard. Maybe that was why he was going away somewhere to school, so he could learn Latin to get ready for Harvard. When he got to Harvard, Nat told himself, he'd work harder than he'd ever worked in his life. When he finished Harvard, his father would come to his graduation, Mary too, and Liza, maybe the whole family. Father would say, Nat, I did the right thing when I took you out of the cooperage and put you back to book learning. As a cooper, you're a good Latin scholar. And they'd laugh together. Nat wished he could jump out of bed now and go talk to his father about it, tell him what he'd heard. But that wouldn't be fair. This was Father's surprise. He must have the fun of telling him. Tomorrow at breakfast, that was when Father would tell him he was going back to school. Smiling, Nat lay down again. For a long time, he lay there, too full of plans to go to sleep. The next morning, when he wakened, it was late. Only Father and Mary were at the table. As Nat ate his breakfast, he watched his father's face for some sign of a twinkle to show that he was thinking about the surprise. But Father frowned over a paper he was studying and never looked up. Nat glanced toward Mary to see if she showed a twinkle, but Mary looked pale, as though she hadn't slept very well. At last, Father pushed back his chair and cleared his throat. Nat? It was coming now. Yes, Father. I've been thinking a lot about you, Nat. You know, I believe you'll do better with your head than with your hands. I think so too. Nat couldn't keep from grinning. Father said, I've been talking to Jonathan Hodges about you. You know, of Ropes and Hodges. Nat said, I know who he is. Mr. Hodges must be the one who talked Father into sending Nat back to school. Father would pay attention to what Mr. Hodges said. Everyone talked about how well Ropes and Hodges were doing. Just 21 or so, both of them, and they had the biggest ship chandlery in Salem. A chandlery is like it says here. Nat had been in the chandlery, a long wooden building on Neptune Street, near Union Wharf. The chandlery was crammed with everything for ships. Everything from barrels of salt beef to cables and marlin spikes. Yes, Father would pay attention to what Mr. Hodges said. Father frowned and seemed to be hunting for words. Jonathan Hodges thinks you show a good bit of promise, man. He thinks a couple of months, maybe 3, under Michael Walsh will give you just what you need. 2 months under Michael Walsh, or 3. Nat tried to figure it out. Mr. Walsh was right here in town. Father had said there would be one less mouth to feed. Father said, Mr. Hodges knows you're quick at figures. He says Mr. Walsh can teach you enough bookkeeping in 2 or 3 months. Then Ropes and Hodges will sign your papers. He looked at the paper he had been studying and handed it to Nat. Nat began to read. Indenture. This indenture witnesseth that Nathaniel Bowditch hath put himself, and by these presents, does voluntarily and of his own free will and accord, and with the consent of Habakkuk Bowditch, put and bind himself apprentice to ropes and hodges, to learn the art, trade, or mystery of ship chandlery, for and during a term of 9 years. Indenture basically means you work without pay, but you learn the trade. Nat picked up the paper and held it in front of his face. 9 years, until he was 21. For 9 years, he would belong to the ship chandlery of ropes and hodges. For 9 years. The paper blurred in front of his eyes. He caught a sentence here and there. During all which the said term, the said apprentice Nathaniel Bowditch shall faithfully serve. He shall not absent himself by day or night from the same ropes and hodges service without leave. He lived there too. That was what Father had meant. No money, he had said, just one less mouth to feed. He'd live there. In 2 months or 3, just as soon as he knew enough bookkeeping, he'd leave home and go to live with Mr. Ropes or Mr. Hodges. For 9 years, he would not leave by day or night without permission. Father said, well, Nat, what do you think? Nat stole a glance from behind the paper toward Mary. Poor Mary, she looked so worried. Tab had said that boys took care of girls and women, kept them from worry. Nat managed to grin. No, I think I'll do better with bookkeeping than barrel staves, all right. There's just one part of this that bothers me. Yes, sir. It says here that I must not contract matrimony. After all, when a man is 12, Mary said, oh, Nat, you simpleton. Her laugh was shaky, but she did laugh. Nat got up quickly. I think I'll hurry right over to Mr. Walsh's. He whistled while he found his slate and pencil. He whistled until he was out of the house and up the street. Then the whistle died. All the way to Mr. Walsh's house, Nat's feet seemed to beat out these words. 9 years, 9 years, 9 years. 2 or 3 months they study bookkeeping, then no more school, ever. Indenture, Nathaniel Bowditch. You know what matrimony is? Anyway, so he was 12, he's like, it says I can't contract matrimony, I can't get married for 9 years. After all, and then he's 12. Big problems. All right, it is time for 8th grade science, which means that we have to have some of the high schoolers leave. I don't care who. Who did I have last time? I can't remember. Yes.
But what do we do? What's our,
What you guys are going to do. Oh. Yes. So you're going to read through page 17 from yes, and we have a quiz today as well. Yes, we have. Yes. Do I want you to actually just do a few of the questions, but I want you to read. It's 13 through. So yeah, read 13 through 17. Do 1, 1, 2, 4. Hang on, I think back here.
1, 2, 4.
Ba-doo. Nope, not there. Yeah, one, 2, 3, 4, 6. Do not worry, just skip 5, and don't worry about the observe and identify. We will do those at a later time. Alrighty. First thing is first. What do you call the study of the soil? Any clues?
Ecology.
Mineralogy.
So what?
I said mineralogy, but that's not right.
That's the study of minerals.
Minerals are kind of like that.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, meteorology or something.
Yes.
Meteorology.
I'm trying to find that to figure out how to pronounce it. So I was going to walk through that. All right, and what about the 6 steps of the scientific method? Can we walk through them one at a time? First step of the scientific.
Find your. State the problem.
State the problem. That's step number 1. Chris, step number 2.
Formally, gather information about the
Yes. I'm gonna ask you guys for your names. You're Jason, right? And you're Mark. It's like, I don't know why. Sudden brain cramp. I don't need to ask your name. You got it figured out. So, where are we at? Number 3? Mark? No. Yes.
Should I say it?
Yeah.
From my hypothesis.
Hypothesis, and then formulate the hypothesis, and then Liam.
Test the hypothesis by.
Right. Experiment. Chris, number 5.
Record and analyze the experiment.
And Richard?
State the conclusion.
Yes. How many variables should you have? change
At
tests.
least,
How should you set up an experiment?
Say,
at least
At
2
least
raised to,
Right, so you should have at least 3 different variables probably, for at least 2, you need more than 1. What is, so, that means you have to set up the experiment how many times?
3 or 2.
If you're gonna have 2 variables, you need to set it up 3 times, because you have to have
control.
you need a control, and then you need each variable, you run the experiment another time with a separate variable each time. Right?
Mhm.
How's it going, Chris? You confused? Locate, get it figured out one way or another.
Which pages are you doing?
We are doing pages 5 and 9.
Did we already do that?
5 and 9, I had to go back and sort out exactly what's going on. We also have some experimentation to do today. There you go, we have to really.
I heard 5G9 and I looked at this one.
Oh, in your thing there, yeah. I still do not have a teacher's guide on that. I will have to find one. I don't think I have an answer key, to be real honest. I have an answer key for the test question, but I didn't have an answer key for that, so I'm gonna have to fake it until I make it or something. All right. Yeah, I got nothing. That means I'm stuff. Ridiculous. The things they expect nowadays, you have to know what you're talking about or what? What is mass? What's the difference between mass and weight? Are you worried about that?
No, really.
Okay. Let me borrow your book. Quiz questions.
Is there a quiz?
Yes.
Today,
Yes.
we're gonna watch it again.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm gonna get a break.
You can move on.
We're gonna get 20. Yeah.
Just about gave you a test, and you wouldn't have done good on that. No, I do not expect you to do badly. All right. The biggest thing that I'm worried about for you is the scientific method. No, it's multiple choice. You still have to know the order.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, I only need to know 3 of them, but I'm not gonna tell you which 3. Yes. So when it says, so what is a standard? So a it says, which group is used as a standard?
Control.
All right, so we do have to talk about mass and weight, and yes, and we'll talk about layers of a little bit. But it's mostly multiple choice and true and false.
Is it the true and false? And if it's false, try to deny it. Answer.
Mm-hmm. Fine. Don't act like that. You act like you lost your last friend. You did, I'm still here. Right? Yes. Perfect. All right. This is what I need to know. So, the mass of an object and the weight versus the weight of an object, they're different, right? Although they are kind of similar, like they have similar properties, like the more mass something has, the more weight, the more it will weigh, right? The biggest thing to keep in mind is if something is dense, it has more weight. Like take, for example, a sponge, like this, for example, even. This has low density, also has a low weight, has fairly low mass. You can pick it up and hold it if you wish, because I'm going to go on to the next thing. Oh, you don't wish. This, on the other hand, is obviously heavier. It's got weight is simply how heavy something is. Right? The mass is also more than that thing, right? But what mass is referring to is how big the thing is versus how much it weighs. So if you had the same amount of erasers here stacked up to be exactly the same size, this would still be heavier. That's because it's got more mass. Now it's also, basically, what mass is the relationship between size and weight, or density. Something that's very dense will sink in water, for example, and something that's very low density will float. This will float, that will not. Simple. Yes, and pedology is the study of soil. What do you call it when you reuse old materials?
Recycle.
Recycling? I wasn't sure who said that. I heard a mutter, and I was trying to trace it back to its source. Right, the other thing you have to know is the layers of dirt. All right? So the top layer is topsoil. Huh, genius. Who could have seen that coming? And then you have subsoil. So topsoil, subsoil, and then you have bedrock, precisely. Those are the three we're worried about. You have to know. Any other questions before I give you quizzes?
How many questions is it?
I have a question. What
Yes.
is that engine?
It's not an engine,
Whatever it is.
it's a carburetor. I got it at a junkyard where I got most of the other decorations right here.
What car does it go in?
I have no clue. I'm guessing it goes on like a 305 engine. It's a quadrajet. Probably slaps on a ship. I don't really know. I got it because it looks cool. Some lucky beggar is going to do another test. I thought I had way too many. I will have to go and violate an agreement or two as I print one off.
Those say biology.
That'll make a difference. That will actually make all the difference we need. All right. I could make you guys do the biology, but I bet the high school would even care.
They care when you get zero on it.
Well, you take their grade and then they take yours. Great. Probably gotta check these, to make sure that one of the. Seems to be the same. So what is the third step in the scientific method?
Hypothesis.
What is the fourth?
Analyze, test.
Might seem.
Recording it.
No, you have to make a hypothesis before you can record it. The fourth one?
Well, I
You
like.
can record your guess.
It's test. Anyways, you record it.
I will still have to,
I know.
we've got two
There
different
should we
versions
go?
going on here. And for some reason, okay, I will still have to go and copy them off. For two. Because it's the problem that we're running into with. Yes. It's not gone well at all. Help me understand what's working. No. This is what, three of them? 1, 2, 3, I need. Alright. And these back and cross and 3 more.
Which page are the most?
Alright. And go back, and you can start on them.
The other one just Google.
raise your hand when you're done, of course. You good?
He's wondering how to spell recycling.
Doing the spelling test and the science test. You don't just lose magnifying glasses. I don't, have been done before. Have one other. Yes.
I'm done. I'm just a minute.
Hold on to it, please. You can hold on to your, take a quiz.
That's a text.
Okay. All right. Now we're all done. Right, good. We're going to just pass your quiz to the person. You go back, Richard, go that direction, and then the other direction. Pass it. Make sure your name. Everybody check somebody who's not there.
No, you're supposed to have your eyes closed up yours.
No, that's the thing. Richards goes to Geneva. Mark go to Cody, Cody go to Dale, Dale to Jace.
What? I was just reminding her.
Yes. Perfect. We have a system. Okay. All right, there we go. Now we're cooking. Numero uno. Number one is D, two is C, three C, four B. Sir,
Is it right?
will it mark it wrong?
No.
Oh, that's the wrong one. I'll be dipped into our, somebody, I thought I got those all cleaned up. All right, I'll take care of that one. Send it over here.
Well, there's that extra one.
That's what's supposed to be done.
Yeah, she just heard all the answers for it, so.
Yeah, well, here, I'll grade this one, I'll make sure, if it's, we're not covering something, I'll make it right. All right, 5 is mass, 6 is true, 7 is subsoil, 8 is theory, 9 true, and 10 is recycled.
8 is theory. Can you just get to that again?
8 is theory.
Yeah,
Can you
5 is mass, 6 is true, 7 is subsoil. Say again?
What was 2, 3, and 4?
2, 3, and 4. Catch up here, Richard. All right, I'll start from the top. You good? D, 1 is D, 2 is C, 3 is C, 4 is B. 5 is mass, 6 is true, 7 is subsoil, 8 is theory, 9 is true, 10 is recycling.
It just has recyclable, like it.
Recycle is fine. All right. Each one off is 10 points, so 1 is 90, 2 is 80, 3 is 70, 4 is 60. Hopefully nobody got more than that wrong. Hopefully nobody got more than 2 wrong. But we'll make it happen. All right. Those go on the corner of my desk now.
I had no idea.
You have no idea, right? All right. We are not going to do activity 1B in your workbook. We are going to do,
Any activity?
yes. We're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do the consequence, is what I'm saying. So this,
We're not gonna do that.
this deductive thing, we don't do that.
Draw it out,
Well,
scribble it out.
don't get too crazy, because you are going to do page 5. And,
It's different because we don't even have that square do.
yeah, no, I'm gonna have to make it work. I'm gonna figure something out. We got 2 different,
It's exciting.
Can we just go off the ones that, can we just use a tablet, go off the ones in our book, the lessons in our book? It's just get rid of this whole activity.
we're probably gonna have to be
We
real honest.
just do
But
it
I
right
haven't done the studying on that. I've got to look
Well,
at it,
it's
figure it out.
really easy, it's really, they just have problems.
I know.
Yeah.
But I have,
And you need to.
These are a pain in the neck.
so here's the problem though, is Leah is still gonna be, she's still gonna have problems.
Not
She's
big
gonna- You don't have the same ones. You still don't have the same one, we're dealing with the same issue. We have exactly the same issue.
Well, there's Dad. Ask him about it.
Well. I'll react him later, he can't fix it right now anyway, I'm not.
You haven't even got my reader yet.
So, we're just, I mean, it is what it is at this point. Your thing, what do we have?
Which one,
Everyone
which one
just-
we're supposed to do? This one and this one? 2 and 1.
What's your ball?
This is frustrating.
Okay, 2A, you want to do, 2B, you want to do.
2A and 2B. Oh, good. Can you tell me?
What's the crossword?
There's some, look, now it goes to where Jace is at. Now after we pass the first few sheets, it shows where Jace is at. Like it's that kind of stuff. Whatever, it's Jason.
We have a bunch.
It's so weird.
Yeah, you have the old, look at all here.
I thought I fought this all out, but I didn't look at the activity books, obvious.
You have the nice.
Science, but then you're too messed up.
No, we don't have to do it.
We can take up our own time.
Here's the problem, is I enjoy science, we gotta quit.
Yeah, but
We're just gonna, we'll figure it out, we'll work through it, this is only a small problem.
So which ones
All
are we
right.
skipping?
Do you have this multiple layers thing?
Yes.
Yeah, Yep, after I skip some, I can just.
I have to skip like 8 pages.
Sorry, 8,
Oh, here we go,
I guess 8, never mind.
this thing right here is 1C, 7
We did that.
in this one.
Oh,
can I have?
Yeah.
Where are you? Oh, yeah.
This, do that activity.
Right now, is it?
This is page, this is what I was planning to make you do today.
This thing was
Nothing but done.
Okay, so in the old one, if you have the old one,
It's still difficult, because look,
All of us 8th graders have the new
we
one.
got that.
Isn't that?
so we're supposed to do this.
Can we just do two different types of science?
Yes.
Wow.
Geneva, it would work if you guys would just stay over there for science.
Yeah.
We would stay over here.
Give me those activity books.
Yes, sir. Gotta figure it out. Why went to the blue book?
You just give us
some
Do you
vegetables.
know what I'm supposed to do now?
Mr. Kim,
History?
say what?
What am I supposed to do?
In history,
Yes, I mean, no, science.
in science, we're gonna figure it out right now. I will make
We
something up.
already have that.
I will make something up like you won't believe.
Nice.
Oh, no.
But you're going to
I
have
want
to.
to
Just skip that. We
Okay,
did skip science for today, we just start working on
we did that last time.
it.
Okay, so I have the book from the old one. You're the only one who has the old one, who has a new textbook. So we're just going to make you suffer, and you're gonna have to look up questions from other people.
Well,
I want you to do, I have not looked at any of these
I can just do the questions in here, you don't have to
Should we
check
just
it.
all do the
I can just get 100.
well, I'll check, don't worry. All right, so you're going to go here through, hang on, wait. Step down, man. All right, so I'm gonna change the goal just to shape. Instead of going through 9, don't worry about the experiments, we will do those Thursday. Go to page 11, bottom of page 11, section review 1.2, and the questions might even be the same.
That's,
Inference, nope, it's not even close.
What's your guys' geometry so like?
I do,
that would be, well, I don't.
I want you guys to learn the same things. Okay,
Well, it is the same thing, it's just,
What?
very, very interesting and full hogwash. I'm taking this away from you as well.
Yeah, it's just so confusing.
No, you're still gonna do science. You're just gonna have to share, and unfortunately, you're sharing 2 books. That's what's really unfortunate about your life. Okay, you're gonna go down to the bottom of page 11. Do the section review 1.2, and that's your assignment for the day.
So we'll just have to do this question.
Yes.
Now what?
You're gonna have to borrow from somebody or work with somebody, possibly, but here's the deal. I want you to just read that at this point, and I will go over that on Thursday, do some review, and I will make sure it's all clear as mud, maybe even a little clearer, hopefully. Problem is, I need to get my biology lesson here, so. Okay. I appreciate that. I'm very sorry. That was not the way it was supposed to go. We have our quiz down. Geneva, I will make sure that you get credited for your quiz one way or another.
I'm gonna do another one.
I know how you are. All right.
Okay, Mr. Chen, the thing is, I did the first 2 things in that book.
Okay.
First 2 conjunctions.
Can't help it. It is what it is. It's an unfortunate deal. That's where we're gonna be. We're just gonna go through this from the book. Because it's the easiest way to make it happen. Sample. Perfect. Let's start a quiz 8. Well, let's not do that. That's the new quiz books. term refers to non-woody plants. Herbaceous, yes. Or herbs. We call them herbs as well. And what do you call a region where a particular organism lives? Yes. All flowering seed plants are, which produce seeds covered by fruit, are called.
Fruit bearing.
Well, yes. There's a one word for them. One word definition. Angiosperms.
Question.
Yes.
What sections is that within the?
1.1 through 1.3. But finish up 1.3, I think. No. We do have to go back over some other stuff. All right, so biology has a few different fields, correct? What section of biology is the study of plants? Botany. What is biennial? What does that mean?
Every 2 years?
There are 2 growing seasons, which is a little more specific. What's perennial? Right, just keeps going until something kills it. Right, like a tree would be a perennial. They're not restricted to a single growing season. What type of bacteria converts nitrogen into nitrates?
Nitrifying bacteria.
Nitrifying bacteria? Not quite. Close.
Gentrifying bacteria.
There's nitrifying and denitrifying, and there's nitrogen fixing, and there's nitrogen degrading. Which one do you want? Not nitrifying.
What was the one not fixing the oil?
There's nitrogen fixing, nitrogen degrading, denitrifying, and nitrifying. One of them converts nitrogen into nitrates. Converts nitrogen from the atmosphere, rather. Nitrogen fixing. Converts nitrogen from the atmosphere into nitrates. That's correct. What, can you describe to me the cashew family?
Yeah, kind of. It's the one with the poison ivy,
Sumac. What about the composite family? When you see the composite family, or composite, you can say it either way.
Sunflowers? One of the ones.
Sunflowers is one of them.
Oh, with
Yeah, or, just,
little beads.
yes, disc and ray flowers, so like, sunflowers are a great example. Also like black-eyed Susans, daisies, whatever. What about the nightshade family? What's in the nightshade family?
Potatoes, tomatoes, peppers,
Yes, tomatoes, obviously poisonous things. People used to think that tomatoes were poisonous.
the potato, like tomatoes. Fruit? Do you have to?
That's a fact. Do you have to know that? Wouldn't that be
Do you have to know? No, I don't know any of this stuff.
You have to know some of this stuff. It is multiple choice. Any clue about legumes? Peas and beans. Basically, they have little nodules on their roots. Whatever, but yeah, if you know that peas,
So there's.
if you know that peas are in there, then you're good.
And alfalfa.
Yep. What about the rose family? Tell me about the rose family.
Rose, apples, apricots, cherries. Strawberries and raspberries.
Hmm?
Strawberries and raspberries. And almonds.
Okay. Apparently somebody started this book full of quizzes. And I never looked at these quizzes before, but these quizzes started like quiz 10 or something. So we're going to have quiz 8. So we're going to have to do this kind of orally. I'll ask you the questions, and you write down the answer on your notebook. If you can. Do that.
Quiz one.
Quiz 1, yes. All right. The first question is, what term refers to non-woody plants? Herbs or? Never mind, that's a true one. Get that right. Herbs. I was gonna try to make it a multiple choice, but I couldn't think of it. Couldn't think of any other multiples. Number 2, what is a region where a particular organism normally lives? What do you call that? Number 3, what term is used to refer to all flowering seed plants which produce seeds that are covered by fruits? And name the type of root system that has one main root with smaller roots branching off, either a taproot or a fibrous root. 5, what field of biology is the study of plants? Physiology, botany, anatomy, or zoology? 6, what term refers to a plant that lives 2 growing seasons? Biennial, semi-annual, annual, or perennial? Biennial, semi-annual, annual, or perennial? 7, what type of bacteria convert nitrogen from the atmosphere into nitrates? Nitrogen-fixing bacteria, denitrifying bacteria, nitrogen-degrading bacteria, or nitrifying bacteria? Nitrogen-fixing, denitrifying, nitrogen-degrading, or nitrifying. Number 8, what kind of plant family is it that has flower heads, disc, and ray flowers? Is it cashew, composite, which family has members that are called legumes? Pea, parsley, or rose? And number 10, the family to which sumac, poison ivy, and poison oak belong? Cashew, nightshade, or rose? All right, everybody good? Any questions on any of them? Wish to go back, find another one? All right, I will read the answers. Don't worry about switching them up. Number 1 is herbs, 2 is or herbaceous plants, doesn't matter. 2 is habitat, 3 is angiosperms, 4 is the taproot system, 5 is botany, 6 is biennial, 7 is nitrogen fixing bacteria, 8 is composite family, 9 is pea family, and 10 is the cashew family. I will need those grades. Yes, ma'am.
I can't find where it talks about the scientific law.
Scientific laws right here. What? Which ones? This is scientifics.
It just says what is the scientific law.
I feel like I know it. But I have to go back to my biology class for a minute here. I'll be right with you. All right. What is a monocot?
It has one open. Is it
One what?
open, whatever it's called?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's cotyledon,
Yeah.
yes. There's like a one part to the seed or whatever. What about a dicot?
There's two.
Right, give me an example of a dicot.
Dogwood.
Say again?
Dogwood.
Dogwood?
A bean? Yeah. A bean?
A bean is a dicot, yes. I don't know, but I don't know if I've ever seen a dogwood.
It has a little buttercup there, there's a buttercup there.
Okay.
A watermelon. Let's see.
Yeah. All right, would a pine tree be classified as an annual, biennial, or perennial? Perennial. All righty. So 13 through 17, let's talk about broadleaf trees. And it is unfortunate that we don't have more of them around, but I do want to look at my microscope. I thought it was supposed to be coming today, but I haven't seen any updates on it. I want to look at some leaves under a microscope. I don't see willows around, not necessarily the weeping willows, but yeah, the junipers. We're talking about broadleaves, which is not so juniper-ish. But I do want you, if you can, as part of your assignment on Thursday, I will write it up for the night before as well. But I would like you to bring in at least one leaf for me. It shouldn't be hard to find one leaf. All right, here's the other thing that I'm gonna need you to do. We're going to need to mount these plants that we pressed. We're going to mount them in a sheet of cardboard, we'll turn them on. But we need to have a 3x5 card. So we can work through that next period as well. Any further questions? Your assignment for today, possibly, is to get those things mounted mostly. And yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 on page 18. There will be, or there's supposed to be, another quiz, because I guess we're going to fast enough to get a quiz every day. So. We go.
and good.
Yes, and the quiz is in full grade off of them.
And like the 2 lessons.
Yes. Thank you.
Hopefully,
Say again?
hopefully you can read it. I did 1.2 and 1.1, which are based and then.
Okay. Also, I don't know who lost their sun chips out there, but I found them. Be careful what you leave laying around. Just gonna dump it. What?
You don't mean language, English,
I can.
just the. Take the lead, you can move out, and take off that, and include everything.
Are these both the verbs?
Where's the rest?
That one.
It is a,
Verb form is not an adjective.
so if you see two verbs, one of them might be a participle.
Well, I think this was
So-
one participle. Pardon.
Is letting being used as an adjective or is it describing something? What does an adjective do? I mean, that's, or is it
The noun,
showing action? So what does an adjective do?
describes an noun.
Right. So,
It's describing meaning. Letting meaning, not really.
it is not describing him, though.
Okay, so it's either taking or thing,
Okay, so which one is the verb in this situation? What's the subject? Yes.
son,
Simon, thank God. So that one cannot be a participle.
so it's taking.
Right. It is describing
Son.
Simeon, yes.
Okay. And, yeah, oh, these ones, I don't know how to do these.
Ooh, what's the rule? You gotta look back to, I think it's like lesson 1 or something. Number 2. I remember seeing somewhere.
Alright,
Who is a subject or predicate nominative? Whom is a direct object? All right, so what is the subject? Oh dear. Then go backwards in questions and saying things the old English way.
who is the subject or predicate noun?
Okay, so is it a
That's the
subject?
subject.
Well,
Subject
no.
or preposition. For whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee.
Well, so here's the deal. There's an understood you in this sentence.
Okay.
This is an imperative sentence with an understood you.
Mhm.
You never send to know for whom the bell tolls.
Okay.
Because whom is receiving the action of the bell toll.
Mhm. So it's whom.
Mm-hmm.
Who shall send, this one's who,
Yes,
or who shall, this one's to who.
yes. Because we use it.
Yeah, that's all I have there.
Isn't it like recess?
It is time for recess, yes.
End of recess?
No. It's 10 after.
That's not what it says.
Oh, it says 2. Oh. You're right. Silly classes. I wrote it down as 2:15 originally.
I'm
I
reading
like to
poison.
do this.
Oh dear. From the nightshade family. This cannot be good.
Oh, that was nice.